I didn't really know where I was going to. I just felt the urge to be on a journey, to be feeling like I was going again. I wasn't even too sure if I would ever find a final destination this journey. All I knew is that out there in the everydays, I would have found a place where I could feel away from all this consumed consumerism. At the northern tip of the Isle of Lewis lies the parish of Ness, offering a unique insight into the legends, lore and long-observed traditions that have shaped the island's unique identity. Jutting out into the waters of the Atlantic, Ness has been home to generations of sturdy seafarers whose traditions are celebrated in the local art. On the cliffs outside the village of Port Ness, we come across, to what's left of, the one-time Clan Morrison stronghold called Dunestine. The Dun, which means fort in Gaelic, is a sea stack, which is isolated from the mainland of Lewis by the sea high tide. The sea stack was probably occupied long before the Morrisons became a clan, but it became the base and stronghold of the Clan Morrison until the clan system came to an end. The seagulls nesting on the stack used to be guarding against anybody trying to climb the cliff. Back in the picturesque village of Port Ness, we stopped at the Harbour View Gallery, a small working studio and gallery run by the artist Anthony Barber. How long have you been here for? When did you move here?
I've been here for 21 years.
Okay.
I moved here in February 1994.
Okay. Are you originally, as a scene on the tag there, from Bradford?
Staffordshire.
Staffordshire. Yeah.
And we lived in Yorkshire for 10 years.
Oh, okay.
So we moved here from Yorkshire.
Okay.
I studied architecture in Yorkshire. So.
All right. Okay. Okay. Nice. Why did you choose Lewis?
The first island we ever went to was the island of Mull, and
okay.
we liked Mull, and then we bought a book called An Eye on the Hebrides by Myri Hedwick that was a travel log with sketches, and she travelled through all the islands on the west coast. So because we got that book, we decided to see as many of the islands on the west coast that we could, and we both liked Skye, and I thought we would live in Skye, and then we saw this shape on the horizon, Skye one holiday, and said next year we'll go there. And it sounds really cheesy, but the minute we arrived in Lewis and Harris, something just struck a chord straight away. I think it's because it is remote and it feels like a proper island, where Skye now isn't quite the same, and the same with Mull. Although they are physically islands, there's not that same remoteness about them. I know people in Mull and they shop in Oban. So it's not quite the same here. In many ways you're stuck here.
Yeah.
Which I like that feeling. I like the idea of being away from it.
Yeah. And was this geographical expansion linked to your art? See what you wanted to do? Did you want to find a quiet place to develop?
Yeah, I knew this is what we wanted to do. And the only criteria really was to be in a nice place. We've got no particular set place on the island where we wanted to be. The criteria was we wanted an old house by the sea, and then what we thought would be a reasonable place for a business. And we bought the house next door, and at the time it was operating as a bed and breakfast and a coffee shop. Right. So we did the same for the first 2 years, because I thought it would be a bit naive to suddenly arrive and say, look, I'm an artist, start buying what I do and expect me to make a living from day one, which doesn't really happen.
Yeah.
So we did that to begin with, and I published a few greetings cards and prints, did trade fairs, and luckily it just went from there.
Yeah. How did it go with the locals when you first arrived here?
We found the local people incredibly friendly. I think the thing is here, there's so many people that move away, that when someone moves here and with a commitment to stay, people
they appreciate
welcome
that.
They appreciate
really,
it, definitely. Yeah.
They go this open-minded about incoming people.
Absolutely,
Visitors,
yes, there really is. Yeah, I think it's because, as I say, my eldest daughter was born here, is about to go off to Edinburgh University in September, and herself and some of her friends, the chances of most of them coming back, or even a few of them coming back, are quite slim, because they'll get qualified in what they do, and even if they want to come back, there's not the opportunity here.
So you need to be in a way really hardcore with what you do.
Yes.
To resist.
Yes.
The remoteness, survive the remoteness.
Yeah, you've got
location.
Yes, you've got, and in many ways you're thrown on your own resources. You tend to find there's lots of self-employed builders, and indeed now there's quite a few self-employed people doing the same thing that I do, because you've got to really be employed by yourself, because there's not many other options. The local authority is the biggest employer, followed by the health board.
Okay. How do you, tell me about a little bit about your art. What do you really operate?
I work from sketches. I go out with a sketchbook, so even on a grey day like today, I can sketch a scene and I know what the colours are like on a good day. And I work here in this studio, such as this, in this small space where you can see I've spilled paint all over the place. And I just work from sketches and from memory, how I've seen things. I keep a relatively limited palette of colours, colours that I feel portray the place, hopefully.
Okay, sure. And how about the business? How do you really what's your major way of selling your art?
It was mainly to begin with the trade fairs. I made a lot of connections through trade fairs. I love that club, and that really got me into quite a few galleries. In recent years I've had pictures accepted and exhibited at things like the Royal Scottish Academy, and a couple of others, Royal Scottish Society of Watercolour Painters, and a couple down in London, and that starts to get you known to a certain extent, and then more galleries sort of contact you. And if it goes well, it doesn't always go well. Sometimes a gallery likes the look of what you do, but people don't buy it. That's it. Then you know.
So in a way, you establish your marketing identity back then, with all the exhibitions. And
I suppose so. I mean, it sounds conscious. It sounds conscious, but it really wasn't. It wasn't something I thought, well, if I get a painting in there, then that will move me on to this or whatever. I didn't even think of it that way, to be honest. It was, in some ways, a bit of a shock that suddenly you get a few connections from it. I just tried to see if I could actually get something chosen and exhibited, really.
And today you mainly operate on an internet-based.
There's quite a lot that goes by the internet these days. Yeah. As I say, it's not a business in itself, but it's a nice top up. It's certainly a nice top up.
Okay. Right. Thanks a lot. Thank you for your time.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the call.
On the western coast of the Isle of Lewis, just west of Shabbost, stand a pair of thatched mill buildings set between Loch Roinovat and Loch Namuln. There was a mill and kiln here during the Iron Age, used for drying and grinding barley into meal, and the mill was powered by a stream flowing out of Loch Roinovat. Corn and barley were staple crops on Lewis, and there were similar mills scattered throughout the islands. By the 1840s, there were hundreds of similar mills in operation, but they gradually fell out of use. The Shabbost mill is now the only working example of this traditional type of mill anywhere in the Western Isles. The process of rebuilding the two thatched buildings was begun by local school children and completed by the Norse Mill Society. The result offers a glimpse in the Viking history of life on Lewis. The location is picturesque, and the traditional thatched buildings really offer an appealing glimpse into a way of life that was essentially unchanged on Lewis for hundreds of years. The following morning, in search of living heritage, we visit a tweed maker in the village of Carloway. Norman Mackenzie is a grey-haired man who learned the craft as a boy by watching his uncle in the weaving shed where we meet today.
Can I? Hiya. Hiya, how are you? We were interested in finding out how you create your tweeds. I'm a foreigner, okay, so
Where are you from?
I'm from Sicily.
Sicily?
Yeah. You been there?
No, I've been to Sorrento.
Oh right, that's nice. That's nice.
The tourist
Nice
place.
enough. Well, so is
Along
Sicily
the
in some
coast.
place. I'm an islander. Are you local?
Yes.
You from Lewis?
Yes.
Okay, so as an islander, you know, we got some tourist part, but always
Hey.
there's a rural traditional part of it as well.
I'd love to go to Sicily.
It's beautiful, but it's very hot during the summer. So yeah, if you wanna explain me what happens with the tweeds, why is it so anxious as well?
Right, let's get on. Front room here.
Yeah, sure.
Right there, Harris Street. Very famous product, well known all over the world, and it's been making it here for over 100 years, if not longer,
Okay.
and selling it abroad. Now, Harris Street has got its own trademark. This is it here.
Yeah.
Now, this is the orb and the cross above it. I thought that was the Maltese cross, but I was told it was not. Do you know the Maltese cross?
We do know the Knights of Malta.
Aye. I think in the Maltese cross there's these scallops in it here. This trademark is over 100 years old, so it's been around for a long time. Also, Harris Tweed is the only textile in the world that's got its own trademark.
Okay.
So, as far as I'm aware, it's the only textile in the world. Now, what the trademark tells you about the product, first of all, is hand woven.
Yeah.
Now that's most unusual nowadays to get a hand woven product, especially the amount Harris Tweed is made in.
Yeah.
It's pure wool, and you can only call it Harris Tweed if it's made in the Outer Hebrides of Scotland. That's the only place in the world you can make Harris Tweed.
Okay.
It's like things like Parma ham and champagne. It's just strict forever. Now, there are 3 tweed mills. They're all in Lewis, the mills. There's none in Harris at all. Very little Harris Tweed is made in Harris anymore. But it's called Harris Tweed because that's where it started life
Okay.
a couple of 100 years ago in Harris. It's all made in Lewis now. It's all part of the same island.
Yeah.
Now, the mills, the wool has to come from the mainland UK because there's not enough wool here to keep the industry going.
Okay.
And that's been the case for a long time. Mainland wool.
Okay. So does it come from any particular area in the UK? Does it have to come from it, or just all nationwide?
Comes from mostly from the Cheviot sheep. Cheviots? The Cheviots, down in the borders. There's a breed of sheep called the Cheviot.
Okay.
And that's the wool that's used mostly. The wool comes from the mainland UK here, and once it comes to the mill, one of the first things to do with the mill with the wool is to dye the wool whatever colour they require.
Okay.
Now, the traditional colours of Harris Tweed are the colours of the landscape.
So green.
Green, blue and grey.
Okay.
Brown, purple at the head end. The kind of colours of the flowers as well.
Okay.
You know, reds and yellows.
Do you use natural dyes for it, or?
In the olden days they would use natural dyes, you know, the crottles and the lichens and plants and flowers.
Yeah.
But nowadays it's all artificial dyes, chemical dyes. But it's still the landscape colours, an artificial dye. Now they'll dye the wool and then they'll spin it into yarn. All that's done in the tweed mills. And they produce tubes like that in the mill. Okay? Now they're not allowed to weave at all in the mill. The weaving has to be done at the weavers' homes.
Okay.
The reason for that is Harris Tweed started life as a cottage industry. And they want to preserve as much of the history of it as possible. So the trademark insists that it's done at the weavers' homes. Now, I'll buy yarn like that from the mill to make my own tweeds. I'm an independent weaver, so I make my own tweeds. Now, once I get my yarn like that in these tubes, I'll make my own warp, W-A-R-P. The water threads that are left is in the tweed, that's your warp. The ones that go from side to side are called weft. Warp and weft. Okay?
So that's the technique. See. Okay.
Now, I make what you call single width Harris tweeds, 75 centimetres wide. They used to be made. I'll tell you about the other kind in a minute. Now, the way I make my own warp is I'll set out 24 tubes of yarn here, 24 tubes, and I'll use this wooden frame. And I'll start at the very top and go round all the pegs with 24 threads right down to about there. And then I'll go backwards, round them all with 24 threads. And I'll keep doing that until I get a total of 696 threads or mistakes. 696 threads. That'll give me a tweed that's 75 centimetres wide, like this one here. Now that amount of warp from there down to about there gives me a tweed that's about 60 metres long, 60 metres long. Okay? Now once I get all that warp on the stakes, I'll pull it off at the top here. And as I pull it off, I'll make it into a chain like this. This is a chain of warp now.
Wow.
Short chain. And that's your 696 threads
Yeah.
in there. So that's your warp all ready now to go into a tweed. Now this is, you also have to prepare your weft as well.
Yeah.
This machine here is
Yeah.
what we call a weft wind.
Yeah.
A weft wind. It's got 6 spindles on it and a little electric motor. And
Nowadays, this is still like the only machines that you make the tweeds with. That's the traditional and most contemporary machine.
yes.
You don't use anything like any more modern machinery or
Yes,
anything.
yes, yes.
Okay.
Not I don't know. There isn't. I'll tell
Yeah.
you about that in a minute.
Yeah. Okay.
Now this is what we call a weft winder. Now it's got 6 spindles on it and a little electric motor. And from the big tubes down here it makes the bobbins.
Okay.
It's got to be reduced from that size to that size to fit into the shuttle,
All right. Okay.
which you use when you're reeving. Now, there's one of them set up at the end here, so I'll just switch it on. That's it filling up. Okay, once it's filling up, it's been gently lifted up onto the cylinder, and when it's full like this, it'll fall off. And you just take it off and you slip on another one. Normally you have all 6 going at the same time, and when you do, you can fill a bucket full of bobbins
Okay.
in about half an hour. Now this particular machine is about 60 years old, and there isn't, for single width weaving, there's nothing more modern than this. Just to tell you. Now if you like to go right round to the other side,
Yeah.
now they started to make these looms in the early 1920s, about 90 years ago. Now the Hattersley loom that you see in a minute has got an automatic flying shuttle. For 70 years, from the early 1920s to the early 1990s, all Harris Tweed was made on a Hattersley loom like this. All Harris Tweed was made in a Hattersley loom. Producing a tweed that, as I said, is 75 centimetres wide. What happened in the early 1990s was they moved on to double width tweeds.
Okay.
Bigger looms were made, newer looms, made a tweed that went from 75 up to 150 centimetres wide. Still hand woven, it's exactly the same product, just twice as wide. Because that's what the commercial buyers prefer now. They prefer to have the wider tweed. But this is, nowadays I reckon at least 95% of Harris Tweed is made on the double width looms. There's still a niche market for single width tweeds though, for bespoke tailoring, for hand tailoring, and also for crafts. And that's the market I cater for. Okay, so that's a brief history of the loom situation, as far as Harris Tweed is concerned. Now you're going to start a The new tweed, I'm more than halfway through this one, which is 60 metres long. I'll finish it on Saturday, all being well. And this is the finished tweed going on to the roller down. Okay. Now when I finish it, what you do is you cut it across here with scissors. I take it off the roller and I fold it and I put it to one side. Okay, right, wash yourself, sir.
On the Atlantic coast of the Isle of Lewis lies peacefully the Garanian Black House village. Unbelievably, some of the black houses were still inhabited until the middle of 1970s.
The island is quite resourceful for peat, yeah? Plenty of.
So the island's quite
that's,
isn't it?
Yeah. You burn what you had to burn.
Well, there was nothing else back in
Yeah.
Black houses were so named not because of the fact that they were in the early days smoke-filled and had small windows, but because they were compared to the new houses being built in the late 1800s, which were called white houses. The new white houses were designed to separate humans from their livestock and animals. The houses were long and narrow, with an outer and an inner wall of unmortared stones. The gap was filled with earth and peat. They were usually thatched and generally had no chimney. Like the Brocks, a family and their animals would live under the same roof. The term black house distinguished these houses from the new houses introduced to the islands, which were coated in lime, wash and called white houses. The building material for some of the black houses of this area has been provided by the local Broch, a defensive tower that by the 1800s had no longer purpose to exist. At about 16 miles northwest of Stornoway, we find the Carloway Broch. The Brochs were built as defensive residences for either important tribal leaders and their families, or for a really important member of the community at that time. Brochs were dry stone circular buildings. Brochs were formed by two concentric walls fastened together with flags at varying heights. Galleries were formed in the interspace, connected by stairs. There were no openings in the wall except a low door at the entrance to a passage to the inner court, which was open to the sky. Usually there was a guard cell in this passage. It isn't known exactly how long the Carloway Broch was in use for. However, it is known that it was in use in the 1500s. Originally the walls might have been about 30 meters high. The Broch's double wall is well preserved, showing tiers or galleries that were linked by a stone staircase within the hollow wall. The setting for Broch is really pretty. It is situated at the top of the hill, which of course makes perfect sense as it was designed as a means of defense in the Iron Age. We get back on the road and we carry on further down south. After a little 20 minutes drive, we get into Callanish, home of the magnificent stone circle. Archaeological excavations of the 1980s prove that the main circle was erected between 4,500 and 5,000 years ago, and the chambered tomb a few generations later. Around 3000 BC, the climate in the Western Isles was warmer than it is today, and the sea level was lower. A cult of religion seems then to have swept through the British Isles, involving the building of large earthen enclosures and impressive circles of timber or stone. And I was completely blown away when I found out that a Greek historian from Sicily, Diodorus Siculus, visited Callanish in the 1st century BC. Whilst I was taking a walk through the stones, I meet Roger, an artist and a passionate of the stone circle.
So if you just come over here, this distance, are you familiar with the mountain, are you? It's the mountain there, that's known in Gaelic, there's two names I know of. Carchnamore which is Old Woman the Boar, or Sheena Harrogate, which is Fairy of the Silver. The moon, every 18 or 19 years, rises.
19 and a half, yeah?
Well, 18 or 19 years for a period of around 2 years, once a month.
Yeah.
Is what actually happens to the eye. Yeah?
Okay.
Now, you can say it's 18.61 if you want.
Yeah.
Where it's at its very, very closest. But it's so close that it occurs once a month for around about a period of about 2 years. It's been born as if it comes out to the sleeping woman there with the hump is, you know. Can you see her? Are you familiar with her?
Yeah, I can see it.
So the moon,
I can see the nose,
exactly.
the mouth and the chin,
and where the moon would be born from.
Yeah.
And it only glides a couple of degrees above the horizon.
Yeah.
And then it floats and disappears behind this crag here, yeah?
Alright.
Now that all happened before the circle was built.
Yeah.
It always happened. Yeah. They had a crop here, they had crops here.
So the moon would rise and set,
They gradually realised this strange event was happening when they were growing crops. So eventually it was replaced with the stones at the age of the stones. Probably fairly early. It's fairly early. It's not the earliest, but it's a fairly early circle. So that's the sleeping woman and the lunar alignment. You go down the bottom of the avenue, then you see the whole thing again. The other side of the crag here.
Yeah.
You see the moon drop into the circle. They think it was all over from down there.
Yeah.
But if you notice, the ground rises as you come up, so you get to see.
Yeah.
You get to see the moon again because you've risen higher.
Yeah.
You can always touch it. It's closely rising, really big on the horizon. So that's the moon, and we know this occurs every 18 years for a period of about 2 years, once a month. The next one's in about 9 years' time.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was stood here at winter solstice, it was deep snow on the ground.
Right.
And but the skies were clear. And I saw the sun go down in that notch over there. You see that notch?
Yeah.
You see how it's echoed by the stone here?
Yeah.
So that's the winter solstice today. But to actually understand where it was in the past, you have to move it back one disc of itself. So it'd be like the gleam of the sun would go down is there, or the top edge.
Oh, right, okay.
So it's very accurate, I believe. So that's the winter solstice. Very important to like to know when to ration your food, stuff like that, to get through the worst of the winter.
Okay.
There's also a very obvious symbolic image of you being an artist, you know. There's a very obvious phallic stone here. A very obvious phallic stone, yeah. Now,
resembling.
What a penis,
Obviously,
isn't it?
yeah, I know that, but I mean, is there like a
It's like fertility.
the motif? Yeah, exactly.
Fertility.
There you go.
The purpose.
Okay.
It's fertility.
Yeah.
Continue. But on the other, next to, strangely enough, next to the phallic stone is the woman stone. If you come out, stand out here, you were to look into this area. See, there's a face with dark hair streaming down. Yeah. Can you see this? It's like looking at images in the stone.
Yes, I did.
So,
Yeah.
because it stands next to the phallic stone, we think, yes, that was deliberate, maybe. But there's more to it than this. It's on alignment. It marks the midsummer sun rise for around 7 days. So if you come over here, and you look over here, you'll see the two ledges on the stones form marks with the horizon. So just after sunrise, around midsummer, around 7 days off, that beam of light, 10 minutes, it just crosses the circle.
That's it. Only on that day for 10 minutes.
Yes, for around 7 days of the midsummer.
All right.
If it's bright enough in the morning.
Okay. And midsummer,
So-
we're talking about past July.
Just we're about to.
Now, yeah.
We're there now.
Okay.
We could be there now.
Okay.
It could be happening now. If it was bright enough in the morning, but
Yeah.
we're lucky.
Yeah.
But it may be the next few days. And look right behind you. You see, there's almost like a skeleton figure next to the stones here. Yeah. You see him?
Very true. Yeah.
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 Now he marks the equinox. Now the reason we've got arms up here
Yeah.
on the circle is because at the end arm, this is where you look at the equinox. The base of this stone rises out. This stone here, look across at the moon here, and the sun on the equinox morning just comes out of it, yeah? So that's there for a reason. You've got the symbology of the figure, and also the alignment, yeah?
Yeah.
So, what else? But basically, see how it makes sense of it. People say, well, why is it shaped like a cross? Well, that's one of the reasons.
Yeah, I was going to say,
The
yeah.
equinox.
Yeah.
That's the reason that stone at the end's there, is to see the moon. But it's all these themes as well.
Yeah.
These themes are, you've got the moon being born out of the mountain woman.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So you've got birth, then you've got fertility, you know?
Yeah.
Fertility with a woman and man. And the
yeah.
sun, yeah?
Yeah.
See?
It's sort of symbolising like a life cycle.
Life, yes, like the birth, conception, and then at the end of it, death, the revering the dead.
Yeah.
So that there's all these things in. That's basically what I believe. Other people see other things.
They probably have like a deeper insight of things than what we can perceive today.
Yeah, I think
that,
I think they would be deeper than the basic themes I'm talking about. Very human, aren't they?
Yeah.
Very human. We're all born. We all procreate to continue things.
Yeah.
You know, they would have done it. Would have been much more less embarrassing in them days. May have been quite a thing that you all got together and they had a big orgy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It could
Possibly.
well be. That's nothing we should be ashamed about.
Yeah.
In the stones, it's like the fertility might be part of it. Maybe really important to continue the fertility of the tribe because they're kind of about to births and deaths. You need to keep being fertile and things and ask for fertility from everything. And a part of nature, the most fertile time of the year, the summer solstice.
Very true.
We're talking about this is happening. And then the equinox, you know. So the winter solstice, that's almost like a hand. It was like too. It was burning my eyes. It was too high. But then the position of the sun is slightly different in those times.
Yeah.
One disk of itself back, so it would just be the top of the sky. But this also here, this has been referred to by other people. And I quite like the idea. This is how I would describe it. There's like a great big rudder or keel. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a great big keel. And this tube here is like coracle. It's for guiding the spirits of the dead to the stars and to the everything, you know. That's how I see it, but also I see it not as much clearly as I do those alignments, but I like that idea.
Yeah. Center one,
Like
middle
a
one is
keel,
left in.
Keel,
Yeah.
to guide the dead to
Did you gather the speculations of some other stories, or?
I think this is probably the most speculative, but
Yeah.
the alignment to the equinox works. This beam of light, this stone, that's there. The mountain goddess is there. You know what I mean? The moon rat is born from her. So they're kind of doing all these things together. There's about 20 other circles known of, many in ruins.
Yeah.
But they relate to this mountain.
Yeah.
Because of this special event.
20 or
20.
around here.
Yeah,
Yeah. Then these was the main one, the pinnacle of it, of them all, or?
It looks like it today. It looks like today, but another thing you can notice about this, it's got 13 stones. It's like 13 moons in the year.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So the rig, you know.
So okay.
But we don't know everything. We know bits. Well, I think the hillside here was sacred before the stones.
How could they know the solar system so well back in those
Because they had a
days?
long time to study it. They had a long time to study it. Before the circle was here, this was cropland.
Yeah.
But this was still going on.
Yeah.
So someone had come along, they're doing the crops here. They said, oh look, that figure's got a face. And then it's got a body. It's like a lying woman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They would realise it because they're themselves. Yeah. And then when they choose the stones, they choose imagery because they're human beings. You know, and they can see that way. It's not just engineering. It's not just kind of scientific observation.
Yeah.
It's
Natural perceptions.
All these things together,
Yeah.
like make the knowing, don't they? You know?
Very true.
Yeah. So I'm convinced of that because it also relates to a lot of what we know about archaeology, where they put certain things in certain places. So I'm convinced that this is quite symbolic of what is happening in those times, you know?
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So there we go.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. Our van has some problems, and I'm heading down to Stornoway for a pit stop.
Keep it down off the body of a stove. That's it. Don't rock against the body. up with a good ball, I think. Very good. Right, boss, thank you so much.
Alright, wait till I come up with you then. Alright, good
Thanks
job.
so much.
Yeah, good job.
What's your name again?
Colin.
Colin. Nice
Yeah.
to meet you, Colin.
Oh.
Thanks so much.
Alright.
You saved that trip, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That will do the job. Yeah, that
Thank
will
you.
keep you.
Thanks
keep
a lot.
you- hopefully keep you not being gassed inside the vehicle.
Yeah, exactly.
After a magnificent drive through the dramatic hills that mark the passage between the Isle of Lewis and the Isle of Iris, we continue our journey all the way to the bottom south of the Isle of Iris. I've heard that around here, in the village of Rodor, there is an iconic church that landmarks the territory. The Rodor Church was built around 1520 for the chiefs of the MacLeods of Iris. The MacLeods actually lived across the Minch at Dunvegan Castle. It is thought that this church was actually built on the site of another older church, but the facts are unproven. St. Clement's Church fell into disuse after the Reformation in 1560. St. Clement's is considered to be one of the most outstanding church buildings in the Hebrides, the early section dating from the 13th century. The church is remarkable for possessing one of the most ambitious and richly carved tombs of the period in Scotland, that of Alexander MacLeod, known in Gaelic as Alasdair Crotach, said to have been the church's founder. By choosing to be buried in Harris, Alexander MacLeod was breaking with tradition, as the previous chiefs of his clan had until then been buried in Iona. The tomb is dated 1528, and its high-quality carved mural panels depict biblical stories. A stylized castle, a hunting scene, and a Highland galley. Images from the 1930s shows the galley carving intact, although it was subsequently damaged in the mid-20th century. The church is now under the guardianship of Historic Scotland. The other notable tomb, with a triangular pediment in the nave's south wall, is probably that of Alistair Crottach's son, William IX Chief. He died in 1551. At the nave's north end, there is a cruder effigy, probably commemorating John MacLeod of Minigish. We've reached the Mission House studio. The building overlooks the desolate and stunning rocky landscape of the base of Iris. When I walked in, everything had an impact on me. The lighting, the sound, the space, and where every object was placed. The warmth of the context could be felt in the room. And to be honest, it felt like the old thing was alive. The attention to the details that the artist had put in the development of the mission house is remarkable. The gallery felt harmonious and all complemented everything. I felt comfortable in the space I was in. Nikolai Glob runs the gallery with his wife. When I met him, I asked him if I could film him for an interview that could be part of this movie. However, he said that he wasn't too happy to be filmed because he didn't feel comfortable with that at that time. Instead, he invited me to spend some time with him and discuss about art and life in general. The more we spoke, the more we realized they had one main thing in common. We are both quite nomad people. At that moment, I realized I wasn't just looking to find the destination of my journey. I believe I was also looking for someone who is there seeking for similar things, who needs to be on the go quite often, and I need to hear his opinion about it. That filled that gap more than finding the destination could have ever done.